Welcome back. We have our sign in our workspace and it's ready for us to start working with. Now I'll just make a little disclosure to you about this. Because we're working with data for players that are doing different things in the game, and this is sitting in the workspace, for our testing purposes at the moment, this will work fine for one person. However, when we get to multiplayer, which I will deal with later towards the end of the course, we'll need to make some changes so that this becomes just like you only see your stats and not other people's. All right, so we will talk to you about that towards the end of the course. All right, so let's get started and with coding our board. So if we have a look here, we've got our sign model with our text label down in here, and we're going to create a script, and it's going to run inside of our sign model to keep track of everything that's going on. So inside our sign model, let's click on script, and we'll call this sign script. All right. So the thing that we will be wanting to change all the time is this text label. So we want to get access to that. But before we do that, because we want to keep track of all the players, we're going to add the player added and character added to this script. So just follow along. Game.players dot player added. Okay, then we're going to connect our function and add the player. Right, then we'll get the character as well to make sure it's all loaded in. So we can go player dot character added, connect function and a character. Alright, give ourselves a little bit of space. So the reason we're doing this is in the signpost, as each player joins, we want to grab all of their information because we're going to put it inside a loop that runs that keeps updating the board. Alright, so the first thing that we want to get is our player stats. So local p stats equals player, and then wait for child, leader stats. Alright, we can get our three stats from here that we want to keep track of. So the first one will be player log count. So in p stats, we'll find first child log count. The next one is the player stone. So ps stats, find first child stone, and make sure these match up with whatever you put into your main script. So in case you wanted to check, come down to server script and just open that up and just check what you did call them, because they need to be accurate. Okay, come back to this now, and the last one we need here is the flint. Local player flint, p stats, find first child, and whoops, flint. So these are the three stats that we work with to determine the game state. Okay, what state of the game is the player in? Now there is one other that we need to determine, and whether the game has been won, and that is the fire up here. Okay, so when the fire is on, then the player has won the game, and that will determine whether we say you win or whether we tell the player to come back to start the fire. Okay, you'll see very shortly, but we want to get access to this here, so we're going to add in here as well local player fire. All right, equals, and we'll go to game dot workspace dot fire pit in the fire pit model, and then we want to go to base and fire. Alright, so we have 4 values in here that determine the state. Now I've had to think through this, and you'll have to follow me along and trust what I'm saying. But if we have a good think about this, when the game starts, these values, log count, stone and flint, are all 0. Alright, and the player fire is false. Okay, so it's not a number, but we can represent false with a 0. So at the start they're all zeros. Then as the game progresses, we will increase this and this to up to 3, and this will go to 1. So there's combinations in here that determine what state the game is in. Now, in order to get this to work correctly, we will have to hide the flint and the stone until our log count is at 3. And that won't be too difficult, and it will help us make the game run better and look better as well. So let's get started. We will create here a table, and it is going to hold the game codes. Alright, we can create a table with our curly brackets, and we'll leave that there just at the moment. We'll come back to the codes after we have a think about what the messages are that we want to put in the game also. So at each stage, so for instance, when the game starts, we want to tell the player what to do. Alright, so let's call this game text, and it will be a table also. So in the curly brackets, let's move down here and give ourselves a bit of space so we can see what we're doing. Alright, so at the start of the game, the first message that we're going to give the player is collect 3 logs. Alright, that gives the player a goal, something to do. And then next, we're going to decrease this, collect 2 logs. So as soon as I've collected one, it'll tell them what to do, and collect 1 log, so we could lose the plural on the end of that. So once they've collected their 3 logs, then we want to tell them to look for a stone and a flint. So collect stone and flint. Alright, now this is where it gets interesting, because we've got 2 things that are different, but they're collecting them. So at the start, we're saying collect one or the other. So when we code this, the first message we're going to say, we're going to assume that they've picked up the flint first, so we're going to tell them to collect the stone. And then we'll have another option where if they've collected the flint first, the stone first, we're going to tell them to collect the flint. Then we're going to have a message because at this stage, if they have collected a flint, 1 stone and 3 logs, they haven't won the game yet, because they've got to go back and start the fire. So that's their next message. We're going to put in here start fire, or start the fire. Okay, and then down the bottom here we'll have you win, which is going to come up on the screen anyway with our GUI. However, let's code this in here. Alright, so that's a good sort of start, and we could put other messages in there too. For instance, you know, like collect 3 logs, and then when they pick one up they put it on the fire, but we'll leave it at this because it's complicated enough. Alright, so now we've got this, let's have a think about our codes. And this is the way that I work this out. So follow along. And we may do this even in the next video. The code we're going to create will be created out of numbers, but we're going to turn those into strings. And it will be a four character string represented. Okay, so let's start off where we're going to say local. Okay, and we're going to call this just log here. Okay, we'll call it log code. And so what we want is whatever this is, we want to turn that into a string. So if it's 0, it'll be a 0 string or a 1 string. And we can do that by typing in toString and then player log count dot value. And that will turn that into a string. The next thing we want to do is do the same thing for the stone and the flint. So stone code equals toString player stone dot value. Next one, flint code toString player flint dot value. Now the last one is a little bit trickier because this is a Boolean value, but we need to turn it into a number. So like I said before, if it's true and the fire is burning, then it would be a 1. However, in every other case, it's false, so it'll be a 0. So we need to put in a conditional statement here to, and well, actually we'll create our, so we'll call this fire code first. And at the moment it's going to be a string, all right, but we need to change what that code's going to be here. So we write a conditional statement to say if p fire, okay, and remember we've got the fire and we need to check dot enabled, then so if it's true, then the player will win, all right, which means that this code would become a 1. So if it's true, then fire code equals, and it's not just a 1, it's a string 1. In every other case, fire code will be equal to a string of 0. Alright, so the last thing we need to do, I know this is a lot of work and you're probably going, wow, I don't know what this all does, but trust me, it'll be worth it in the end. So the last thing we need to do is assemble or create a variable that puts all these together. So just down here, before we get to our game codes, we're going to call this local game state. And it will take in, and in this particular order, okay, the log code for a start, log code dot dot, because we are concatenating, building one string, the stone code dot dot, flint code dot dot, and lastly fire code, no dots on the end. And by this stage, this will create a 4-digit code, all right, and in here, and depending on what it is, now we need to then run through a bunch of codes that we'll write in here in a moment to work out which one matches, and if it matches to one of the codes, then it's going to pick one of these messages. All right, so here's how to think about this, all right, with the codes. The first code is going to be 0, 0, 0, 0. The reason being, okay, the counts are all 0, so start of the game. This is the start of the game. The first thing that we want the player to do is to pick up logs, but nothing else will change. The fire won't be ignited, and we're going to make the stone and the flint disappear. So the only thing they've got to do is pick up logs, which means these numbers will now become 1 0 0 0, and then the next one will be 2 0 0 0, comma 3 0 0 0. So this takes care of our logs. Alright, so if we follow down here, start of the game, collect 3 logs, and then the next one will be collect 2 logs, and then the next one 1 log when we get to here. Then we get to this one here where if where it's saying collect the stone and the flint. Alright, so the first one where we said collect stone, remember we said we assumed they'd picked up the flint first. Alright, and in here that's the 3rd digit. So what we do is we leave this as 3, so this 3 represents the number of logs we've collected. We haven't collected any stone, but we've collected 1 flint, and the last one is false. Alright, next one. Now we reverse this. So in our messages we've said, okay, in this one we've decided they've already got the stone, they need to get the flint. Alright, sorry, they've already got the flint, they need to get the stone. So what we do is we put in 3, and this will become 1, and then 0, and then 0. Okay, hang in there. This one here, start the fire, that means they've got 3 logs, 1 stone, and a flint. So we change this to be 3 1 1 0. And the very last message that we should get is the you win. And that means they have 3 logs, 1 stone, 1 flint, and the fire has been lit. In that case, this would be 3 1 1 1. Alright, it's a bit of a getting inside your head there, pretty tricky. I'm going to stop the video at this stage once you've got these codes written in, and you can check them here if you like. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and you'll find down the bottom here we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So they match up with our tables, and in the next video I'll show you how to make this all work and show up on the sign. So I'll see you there.